Complete English text of the story The Gold Watch by Mulk Raj Anand. There was something about the smile of Mr. Acton when he came over to Srijut Sudarshan Sharma's table which betokened disaster. But as the Sahib had only said, Mr. Sharma, I have brought something for you specially from London. You must come into my office on Monday and take it. The poor old dispatch clerk could not surmise the real meaning of the general manager's remark. The fact that Mr. Acton should come over to his table at all, fawn upon him and say what he had said was of course most flattering. For very rarely did the head of the firm condescend to move down the corridor where the Indian staff of the distribution department of the great marmalade empire of Henry King and Company worked. But that smile on Mr. Acton's face, especially as Mr. Acton was not known to smile too much, being a morose old sahib, hard-working, conscientious and a slave driver, famous as a shrewd businessman, so devoted to the job of spreading the monopoly of King's marmalade and sundry other products that his wife had left him after a 3 month spell of marriage and never returned to India. Though no one quite knew whether she was separated or divorced from him or merely preferred to stay away. So the fact that Acton Sahib should smile as enough to give Srijut Sharma cause for thought. But then Srijut Sharma was, in spite of his nobility of soul and fundamental innocence, experienced enough in his study of the vague, detached race of the white sahibs by now and clearly noticed the slight awkward curl of the upper lip, behind which the determined tobacco-stained long teeth showed for the briefest moment, a snarl suppressed by the deliberation which Acton Sahib had brought to the whole operation of coming over and pronouncing those kind words. And what could be the reason for his having been singled out from amongst the 25 odd members of the distribution department? In the usual way, he, the dispatch clerk, only received an occasional greeting. "Hello, Sharma. How are you getting on?" from the head of his own department, Mr. West, and twice or thrice a year he was called into the cubicle by West Sahib for a reprimand, because some letters or packets had gone astray. Otherwise, he himself, being the incarnation of clockwork efficiency and well versed in the routine of his job, there was no occasion for any break in the monotony of that anonymous smooth working empire, so far at least as he was concerned. To be sure, there was the continual gossip of the clerks and the accountants, the bickerings and jealousies of the people above him, for grades and promotions and pay. But he, Sharma, had been employed 20 years ago as a special favor, was not even a matriculate, but had picked up the work somehow. And though unwanted and constantly reprimanded by West Sahib in the first few years, had been retained because of the general legend of saintliness which he had acquired. He had 5 more years of service to do, because then he would be 55, and the family raising, grista portion of his life in the fourfold scheme prescribed by religion, finished. He hoped to retire to his hometown Jalandhar, where his father still ran the confectioner's shop off the Mall Road. "And what did Acton Sahib have to say to you, Mr. Sharma?" asked Miss Violet Dixon, the plain snub-nosed Anglo-Indian typist, in her sing-song voice. Being an old family man of 50 who had grayed prematurely, she considered herself safe enough with this gentleman and freely conversed with him, especially during the lunch hour, while she considered almost everyone else as having only one goal in life, to sleep with her. "Huh," he said, "he has brought something for me from England," Srijut Sharma answered. "There are such pretty things in UK," she said. "My, I wish I could go there. My sister is there, you know, married." She had told Sharma all these things before, so he was not interested, especially today, because all his thoughts were concentrated on the inner meaning of Mr. Acton's sudden visitation and the ambivalent smile. Well, half day today. I'm off, said Violet, and moved away with the peculiar snobbish agility of the Mem Sahib she affected to be. Srijut Sharma stared at her blankly, though taking in her regular form into his subconscious with more than the old uncle's interest he had always pretended to take in her. It was only her snub nose, like that of Surpanaka, the sister of the demon king Ravana, that stood in the way of her being married. He felt sure, for otherwise she had a tolerable figure. But he lowered his eyes as soon as the thought of Miss Dixon's body began to simmer in the cauldron of his inner life, because, as a good Hindu, every woman, apart from the wife, was to him a mother or a sister. And his obsession about the meaning of Acton Sahib's words returned from the pent-up curiosity with greater force now that he realized that the vastness of the space of time during which he would have to wait in suspense before knowing what the boss had brought for him and why. He took up his faded sola topi, which was, apart from the bush shirt and trousers, one of the few concessions to modernity which he had made throughout his life as a good Brahmin, got up from his chair, beckoned Dugdu Sepoy from the veranda on his way out and asked, "Has Acton Sahib gone? You know?" "Abhi Sahib in lift going down," Dugdu said. Sirjot Sharma made quickly for the stairs and, throwing all caution about slipping on the polished marble steps to the winds, hurtled down. There were 3 floors before him, and he began to sweat, both through fear of missing the Sahib and the heat of mid-April. As he got to the ground floor, he saw Acton Sahib already going out of the door. It was now or never. Sirjot Sharma rushed out, but he was conscious that quite a few employers of the firm would be coming out of the 2 lifts and he might be seen talking to the Sahib, and that was not done outside the office. The Sahibs belonged to their private worlds where no intrusion was tolerated, for they refused to listen to pleas of advancement through improper channels. Mr. Acton's uniformed driver opened the door of the polished Buick and the Sahib sat down, spreading the shadow of grimness all around him. Sirjut Sharma hesitated, for the demeanor of the Goanese chauffeur was frightening. By now the driver had smartly shut the back door of the car and was proceeding to his seat. That was his only chance. Taking off his hat, he rushed up to the window of the car and rudely thrust his head into the presence of Mr. Acton. Luckily for him, the Sahib did not brush him aside, but smiled a broader smile than that of a few minutes ago, and said, "You want to know what I have brought for you? Well, it's a gold watch with an inscription in it. See me Monday morning." The Sahib's initiative in anticipating his threw Srijut Sharma further off his balance. The sweat poured down from his forehead even as he mumbled, "Thank you, sir, thank you." "Chalo driver," Sahib ordered, and the chauffeur turned and looked hard at Sirjut Sharma. The dispatch clerk withdrew with a sheepish, abject smile on his face and stood, hat in left hand, the right hand raised to his forehead in the attitude of a nearly military salute. The motor car moved off, but Sirjut Sharma still stood, as though he had been struck dumb. He was neither happy nor sad at this moment, only numbed by the shock of surprise. Why should he be singled out from the whole distribution department of Henry King and Company for the privilege of the gift of a gold watch? He had done nothing brave that he could remember. A gold watch with an inscription in it? Oh, he knew now. The intuitive truth rose inside him. The Sahib wanted him to retire. The revelation rose to the surface of his awareness from the deep obsessive fear which had possessed him for nearly half an hour, and his heart began to palpitate against his will, and the sweat soiled his body. He reeled a little, then adjusted himself and got on the pavement, looking after the car which had already turned the corner into Nickel Road. He turned and began to walk towards Victoria Terminus station. From there, he had to take his train to Thana, 30 miles out where he had resided for cheapness almost all the years he had been in Bombay. His steps were heavy, for he was reasonably sure now that he would get notice of retirement on Monday. He tried to think of some other possible reason why the Sahib may have decided to give him the gift of a gold watch with an inscription. There was no other explanation. His doom was sealed. What would he say to his wife? And his son had still not passed his matric. How would he support the family? The Provident Fund would not amount to very much, especially in these days of rising prices. He felt a pull at his heart. He paused for breath and tried to call himself. The blood pressure? Or was it merely wind? He must not get into a panic at any cost. He steadied his gait and walked along, muttering to himself, Shanti, 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 as though the very incantation of the formula of peace would restore his calm and equanimity. During the weekend, Sirjut Sharma was able to conceal his panic and confusion behind the facade of an exaggerated bonhomie with the skill of an accomplished natural actor. On Saturday night, he went with wife and son to see Professor Ram's circus, which was performing opposite the Portuguese church, and he got up later than usual on Sunday morning, spent a little longer on his prayers, but seemed normal enough on the surface. Only he ate very little of the gala meal of the rice khichdi put before him by his wife, and seemed lost in thought for a few moments at a time, and his illiterate but shrewd wife noticed that there was something on his mind. Thou hast not eaten at all today, she said, as he had left the tasty papadum and the mango pickle untouched. Look at Hari. He has left nothing in his thali. He answered abstractedly, and then realizing he might be found out for the worried, unhappy man he was, he tried to bluff her. As a matter of fact, I was thinking of some happy news that the Sahib gave me yesterday, he said. He brought a gold watch as a gift for me from Vilayat. Then Papaji gave me the silver watch, which you are using now, said Hari, his young son impetuously. I have no watch at all, and I am always late everywhere. Not so impatient, son, counseled Hari's mother. Let your father get the gold watch first, and then he will surely give you his silver watch. In the ordinary way, Sirjut Sudarshan Sharma would have endorsed his wife's sentiments, but today he felt that on the face of it, his son's demand was justified. How should Hari know that the silver watch and the gold watch and a gold ring would be all the jewelry he, the father, would have for security against hard days if the gold watch was as he prognosticated? Only a token being offered by the firm to sugarcoat the bitter pill they would ask him to swallow. Retirement 5 years before the appointed time. He hesitated, then lifted his head, smiled at his son and said, Acha, Kaka, you can have my silver watch. Can I have it? Really? Papaji? Hooray! The boy shouted, rushing away to fetch the watch from his father's pocket. Give it to me now, today. Wah, son, you are so selfish, his mother exclaimed, for with the peculiar sensitiveness of the woman she had surmised from the manner in which her husband had hung his head down and then tried to smile as he lifted his face to his son, that the father of Hari was upset inside him, or at least not in his usual mood of accepting life evenly, accompanying this acceptance with the pious invocation, Shanti, Shanti. Hari brought the silver watch, adjusted it to his left ear to see if it ticked, and happy in the possession of it, capered a little caper. Sirjut Sharma did not say anything, but pushing his thali away, got up to wash his hands. The next day it happened as Sirjut Sharma had anticipated. He went in to see Mr. Acton as soon as the Sahib came in, for the suspense of the weekend had mounted to a crescendo by Monday morning, and he had been trembling with trepidation, pale and completely unsure of himself. The general manager called him in immediately. The peon Dugdu presented the little slip with the dispatch clerk's name on it. "Please sit down," said Mr. Acton, lifting his grey-haired head from the papers before him, and then, pulling his keys from his trousers pocket by the gold chain to which they were adjusted, he opened a drawer and fetched out what Sharma thought was a beautiful red case. "Mr. Sharma, you have been a loyal friend of this firm for many years, and you know your loyalty has been your greatest asset here. Because otherwise we could have got someone with better qualifications to do your work. Now we are thinking of increasing the efficiency of the business all around. And we feel that you would also like at your age to retire to your native Punjab. So as a token of our appreciation for your loyalty to Henry King and Company, we are presenting you this gold watch." And he pushed the red case towards him. Sirjut Sharma began to speak, but though his mouth opened, he could not go on. "I am 50 years old," he wanted to say, "and I still have 5 years to go." His facial muscles seemed to contract. His eyes were dimmed with the fumes of frustration and bitterness. His forehead was covered with sweat. At least they might have made a little ceremony of the presentation. He could not even utter the words, "Thank you, sir." "Of course, you will also have your provident fund and 1 month's leave with pay before you retire." Again Sirjut Sharma tried to voice his inner protest in words which would convey his meaning without seeming to be disloyal. For he did not want to obliterate the one concession the Sahib had made to the whole record of his service with his firm. It was just likely that Mr. Acton may remind him of his failings as a dispatch clerk if he should so much as indicate that he was unamenable to a suggestion made by the Sahib on behalf of Henry King and Company. "Look at the watch. It has an inscription in it, which will please you," said Mr. Acton. To get over the embarrassment of the tension created by the silence of the dispatch clerk, these words hypnotized Sharma, and, stretching his hands across the large table, he reached out for the gift. Mr. Acton noticed the unsureness of his hand and pushed it gently forward. Sirjut Sharma picked up the red box, but in his eagerness to follow the Sahib's behests, dropped it even as he had held it aloft and tried to open it. The Sahib's face was livid as he picked up the box and hurriedly opened it. Then, lifting the watch from its socket, he wound it and applied it to his ear. It was ticking. He turned it round and showed the inscription to the dispatch clerk. Sirjut Sharma put both his hands out, more steadily this time, and took the gift in the manner in which a beggar receives alms. He brought the glistening object within the orbit of his eyes, but they were dimmed to smile, however, and then with a great heave of his head, which rocked his body from side to side, he pronounced the words, "Thank you, sir." Mr. Acton got up, took the gold watch from Sirjut Sharma's hands and put it back in the socket of the red case. Then he stretched his right hand towards the dispatch clerk with a brisk shake hand gesture and offered the case to him with his left hand. Sirjut Sharma instinctively took the Sahib's right hand gratefully in his two sweating hands and opened the palms out to receive the case. "Good luck, Sharma," Mr. Acton said. "Come and see me after your leave is over. And when your son matriculates, let me know if I can do something for him." Dumb and with bent head, the fumes of his violent emotions rising above the mouth which could have expressed them, he withdrew in the abject manner of his ancestors going out of the presence of feudal lords. Mr. Acton saw the danger to the watch and went ahead to open the door so that the clerk could go out without knocking his head against the door or fall down. As Sirjut Sharma emerged from the general manager's office, involuntary tears flowed from his eyes and his lower lip fell in a pout that somehow controlled him from breaking down completely. The eyes of the whole office staff were on him. In a moment, a few of the men clustered around his person. One of them took the case from his hands, opened it and read the inscription out aloud. In appreciation of the loyal service of Mr. Sharma to Henry King and Company on his retirement. The curiosity of his colleagues became a little less enthusiastic as the watch passed from hand to hand. Unable to stand because of the wave of dizziness that swirled in his head, Srijut Sudarshan Sharma sat down on his chair with his head hidden in his hands and allowed the tears to roll down. One of his colleagues, Mr. Banaji, the accountant, patted his back understandingly, but the pity was too much for him. To be sure, Seth Makhanji, the new partner, has a relation to fill Sharma's position, another said. No, another refuted him. No one is required to kill himself with work in our big concern. We are given the Sunday off, and a fat pension years beyond it is due. The bosses are full of love for us. Damn, fine gold watch, but it does not go, said Sri Raman, the typist. Mr. Banaji took the watch from Sri Raman and, putting it in the case, placed it before Sirjut Sharma and he signalled to the others to move away. As Sirjut Sharma realized that his colleagues had drifted away, he lifted his morose head, took the case as well as his hat and began to walk away. Mr. Banaji saw him off to the door, his hands on Sharma's back. Sahabji, the Parsi accountant said, as the lift came up and the liftman took Sirjut Sharma in. On the way home, Sirjut Sharma found that the gold watch only went when it was shaken. Obviously, some delicate part had broken when he had dropped it on Mr. Acton's table. He would get it mended, but he must save all the cash he could get hold of and not go spending it on the luxury of having a watch repaired now. He shouldn't have been weak with his son and given him his old silver watch. But as there would be no office to go to anymore, he would not need to look at the time very much, especially in Jalandhar, where time just stood still and no one bothered about keeping appointments. Thank you. Please like and subscribe.